Hello and welcome to Engines of Time. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe for more exciting and informative car stories. Now let's dive right into today's video. April 1969, Riverside International Raceway. The California sun beat down on the cracked asphalt. The smell of fuel and hot rubber hung in the air. On the starting line, Lloyd Ruby's Camaro sat silent for a moment, its hood hiding something no one had ever seen before. When it roared to life, it wasn't just fast, it was terrifying. Ruby pushed it through qualifying, and in one lap, the Camaro destroyed the record. The crowd gasped. The paddock buzzed. But the celebration was cut short. NASCAR inspectors swarmed the car, tearing it apart piece by piece, desperate to discover its secret. What they found wasn't a trick suspension or a hidden fuel tank. It was something far more dangerous. An engine unlike anything else in Trans Am racing, GM's forbidden weapon, the Smokey Yunick built Hemi Head 302, a motor so radical, so powerful that it threatened to rewrite the history books until corporate fear killed it in cold blood. This is the story of the engine that scared Detroit, the Camaro that could have been unbeatable, the forbidden monster that GM buried before it ever truly lived. The birth of the war. To understand the Hemi Head 302, we need to rewind to 1964. That was the year Ford unleashed the Mustang. Affordable, stylish, and aimed squarely at younger buyers, the Mustang didn't just sell, it exploded. By the end of its first year, hundreds of thousands had been built. The pony car was born, and a cultural frenzy swept across America. Chevrolet could not sit still. In 1967, they launched the Camaro. Built on the new F-body platform, shared with the Pontiac Firebird, the Camaro was Chevy's answer to the Mustang. Its name was pure marketing fiction. A Camaro, the ad men joked, was a small, vicious animal that eats Mustangs. But while the name was a joke, the bite was real. Chevy offered a car for everyone, inline sixes for economy buyers, small blocks and big blocks for the speed junkies, and a long hood, short deck, wide stance body that looked fast even standing still. In its debut year, Chevrolet sold over 220,000 Camaros, but sales weren't enough. Prestige, real bragging rights, came from the racetrack. And in the late 1960s, that meant one thing, the SCCA Trans-American Sedan Championship, the Z28 and the 302. To compete in the Trans Am's over 2-liter class, manufacturers had to sell at least 1,000 street versions of their race cars. Vince Piggins, Chevrolet's quiet engineering genius, knew the rules and exploited them. His idea was simple. Build a stripped-down Camaro specifically designed to win races. That car became the Z/28. Introduced in late 1966, the Z/28 was a homologation special in the purest sense. Its heart was the 302 cubic inch V8, created by combining the block of the 327 with the crankshaft of the 283. Officially rated at 290 horsepower, it was deliberately underrated. In truth, street versions made closer to 350, while race-prepped engines screamed past 400. The Z28 wasn't built for comfort, no air conditioning, minimal insulation, a close ratio 4-speed, heavy-duty suspension, stiff springs, and big disc brakes. It was loud, raw, and designed for one purpose: to win. By 1967, Chevrolet had only built 600 2Z/28s. By 1969, demand skyrocketed, and more than 20,000 rolled off the line. But its real proving ground was the racetrack. Enter Penske, and Donahue Chevrolet handed the Z28 to Roger Penske, a meticulous team owner, and Mark Donahue, a Princeton-educated driver-engineer. Donahue was brilliant. He didn't just drive the car, he dissected it, looking for weaknesses and ways to squeeze out speed. Penske's team turned the Z/28 into a lean, brutal race machine with lightweight panels, racing slicks, and engines tuned to the ragged edge. In 1967 and 1968, the Camaro fought Ford's Mustangs tooth and nail. Ford's Boss 302, tuned by Carroll Shelby and Jerry Titus, had better breathing at high RPMs. Chevy's 302 was tough, but it couldn't match the Mustang's top-end fury. Donahue himself admitted, We needed something more. Something radical, and Chevrolet knew exactly where to turn. The Smokey Yunick factor. Smokey Yunick. The name alone carried weight. A World War II bomber pilot turned mechanical outlaw, Yunick ran the infamous best damn garage in town in Daytona Beach. His shop smelled of sweat, race gas, and rebellion. He wasn't just a mechanic. He was an innovator, a manipulator of rules, and sometimes a straight-up cheater. But Smokey didn't care. His philosophy was simple. If it ain't written, it ain't illegal. By the late 1960s, Smokey had already won NASCAR's Mechanic of the Year twice, built a 1960 Indy 500 winner, and terrified officials with creations so radical they were banned before they ever raced. His 1966 Chevelle, acid-dipped until it was dangerously thin and reshaped for aerodynamics, was outlawed on sight. And that was exactly why Chevrolet trusted him. They needed someone willing to step outside the box, someone who could beat Ford's boss 302 at their own game. The forbidden 302, Smokey's answer was unlike anything Chevrolet had dared attempt. An experimental 302 with all-aluminum construction, magnesium valve covers, and radical pistons. But the real crown jewel was its cylinder heads. Nicknamed porcupine heads for their wildly canted valves, these aluminum castings looked more like something off a Chrysler Hemi than a small block Chevy. The valves were massive, 2.05-inch intakes, 1.94-inch exhausts, huge for a 302. Ports so large you could fit a fist inside. The spark plug was moved closer to the chamber center for more efficient combustion. On top sat a clean sheet intake manifold, not the production cross ram, but a one-off Smokey design, feeding two Holley carburetors that together swallowed over 1,100 cubic feet of air per minute. To keep the mixture even, engineers added directional ridges inside the plenum. Even the bolts were different, mounted vertically instead of the traditional horizontal small block style. This wasn't just an engine, it was a prototype race weapon. The beast on the track dyno figures varied, but estimates put the Hemi Head 302 between 430 and 450 horsepower in race trim. Rumors whispered of one test motor cracking 500. Compared to the Ironhead 302's 375, this was a quantum leap. Test driver Lloyd Ruby knew it instantly. After his first run, he came back pale and shaken. "Smokey, this thing pulls like a jet fighter, but it feels like it's going to blow sky high any second." At Riverside in April 1969, the engine finally saw daylight. Ruby stormed to a qualifying record. Ford was rattled. The paddock was stunned. For a moment, it looked like Chevrolet had found the silver bullet. Then came the hammer. Officials disqualified the car, not for the engine, but for chassis tricks. Acid-dipped body, lowered subframe, Smokey's fingerprints all over it. The Hemi Head's legality was never even challenged. But the damage was done. The corporate guillotine inside GM's headquarters, nerves frayed. Officially, the corporation still enforced a strict no racing policy. Unofficially, they played the game through backdoor channels. But this engine was too radical, too visible, too tied to Smokey Yunick's reputation. And besides, why risk it? Penske and Donahue were already winning with the Ironhead Z/28. The Camaro had taken the 1968 Trans Am Championship and looked ready to do it again. The exotic aluminum heads were expensive, fragile, and offered marginal gains compared to the tried-and-true setup. Smokey saw it differently. "They didn't kill it because it wouldn't work," he spat. "They killed it because it would work." And just like that, the project was dead. Maybe 3 complete engines were built, a handful of heads. Then the parts were shelved, catalog numbers erased, and the project locked away. Legacy of a ghost Ford went on to win the 1969 Trans Am title. Chevrolet focused on safe bets like the ZL 1427, which became legend in its own right. The Hemi Head 302 became a whisper, a ghost story told in garages and race shops. But legends don't stay buried forever. Decades later, a crate surfaced in Daytona marked Project HH, inside, prototype heads. Enthusiasts began piecing together replicas, chasing Smokey's forbidden dream. Today, a few outlaw builders run Hemi Head 302s in Resta mods and vintage racers. The monster GM tried to kill lives again, rebuilt from blueprints and memory. What if? And so the question remains, what if? What if GM had unleashed it in 1969? Could the Hemi Head 302 have crushed Ford's Boss 302 and forced Trans Am into a new era? Would it have changed the Camaro's fate in the 1970s when oil crises and emissions strangled Detroit's muscle cars? Or would its complexity and fragility have doomed it just as quickly? We'll never know, but one thing is certain. In an era defined by risk-takers and rule-benders, the Hemi Head 302 stands as the greatest what-if of them all. A machine too wild, too dangerous, too ahead of its time. This is Kurum from Engines of Time. Catch you next time.